Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Armada Rapid Reinforcements 2. We have some answers. Lots of FAQ answers have been posted, and I want to talk about some of the more interesting clarifications. Look, Rapid Reinforcements 2 definitely had a lot of people wondering what was the intent. I was all over the place with this. What are they trying to have us do? The rules technically read this way, but there's no precedent for this, and this could be taken like 2 or 3 different ways depending on which rule you want to cite in this case and that case, and it's been kind of all over the place. And so we finally have some answers. This happened, I want to say, this started like Friday, and they were kind of answering throughout the day and into the evening, at least for me, because it's Eastern time. But I thought it'd be pretty cool to talk about some of the more interesting interactions and answers we got for Rapid Reinforcements 2 in today's video. If you guys are new here to the channel, we have a massive new giveaway going on right now for a $165 Amazon gift card for a Star Wars Shatterpoint core set. If you want to have a chance to enter to win that, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. I also would love for you to stick around, check the Crabbok.com and the other links in the description below. You can join our Discord as well. Over on Crabbok.com, we have the awesome free content that's out there. We got some Armada expansions that I've created that are out there, the free AI expansion. So if you're looking to play against yourself, you can check that out too. All that good stuff. So check it all out. Jump on our Discord. Keep the discussion going. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on Rapid Reinforcements 2 and these new rulings. So first one I want to talk about is Matchstick. This one may have been one of the least controversial. I think there were definitely some questions about like how he moves, and I think this one I had the least questions about, but there was at least some clarification given. You know, basically people around him will gain rogue if if he's unengaged. But this is like it's not a like they gain rogue and then they have it forever. As soon as they move out, like if somebody's near him, hey, they gain rogue. As soon as they move away, if they move away to attack and they're no longer at range distance 1 of him, they're gonna lose rogue, and then well, they've already moved, so now they can't attack. So like you have to be really careful about this, and like you may need to move Matchstick first, and then but keep him just at distance 1 of some of those other people, or move him a little bit farther away. Somebody might move. Oh, now they're at distance 1 of him after they've moved, so now they can also attack. So interesting stuff. It's going to be very tricky to master him, but against light squadron builds or squadronless builds, he's going to completely wreck the floor. Wreck the floor? Wipe faces. No, wreck faces. Wipe the floor, and flash circles around your opponent. He's going to be nasty. Matchstick is overshadowed by Anakin a little bit, but Matchstick is really really probably a little bit of a game changer, especially if you want to drop him and a bunch of Arc 170s really far forward with his hyperspace rings, since he doesn't actually have rogue. Of course, before he's on the board, his abilities, he's not distance 1 of himself when he is off the board, right? So a lot of that stuff, and again, I'll put links down in the description below to the rules reference forum where they've answered a lot of this stuff. Anakin, of course, who kind of overshadowed Matchstick a little bit, because Anakin was one of the biggest questions on, like, wait a second, you can only attack twice, so if you use his ability and if you salvo, does that count as one of your 2 attacks? It does not. He can. Basically, long story short, the triple tap is confirmed for Anakin Skywalker. He absolutely can triple attack. And not only can he triple attack, but he can double salvo defensively. He is every bit as terrible as everyone feared he is. And it's astounding to me that he's only 29 points. He should be probably over 40, maybe 50 points, and I think people would still take him. I think he'd still be one of the most commonly taken commanders competitively, even at 50 points. But yeah, at 29 points, he's a complete steal, and I think we really need some commanders rebalanced with their points, because 29 just doesn't add up to me with just how incredibly good he is. So yeah, Anakin's on fire. He's absolutely insane, and they have confirmed that. Last and maybe most surprising to me is Draven. Draven has a lot of clarification on the rules reference forum right now. I feel like 75% of all the questions people are asking right now are about Draven. And it's pretty interesting. So at first, Draven seems kind of interesting because they're like, hey, you're gonna change everybody's dials to tokens. Okay, that's pretty interesting. But he's not really changing a dial to a token. Basically, I'll talk about this in the way it seems like they're conveying it. He's basically leaving it a dial. It's just being treated similar, but not exactly the same as a token. All right, and so it's this very, very weird kind of mechanic where, at face value with no upgrades at all, you're going to resolve a dial, and it's going to do what a token would do, but it's still a dial resolving it. And so again, it's a very weird kind of nuanced application of this rule. So he's almost like shrinking a dial towards a mini dial. It still counts as a dial, which is very, very interesting because you're still spending a dial. But the fact that it's being resolved as though they spent a token is really the key, and that factors into all the other questions. Like I had talked about the Liberty title for the MC80 Liberty. That one says if you spent a token, you get to do +1 squadron. Well, even though this says as though you spent a token, you didn't spend a token. So that's like one of the examples that's on there. If you have a token already, and then Draven is out there, and so your opponent basically has a dial and a token, you can resolve them together and get the effects of 2 tokens at once, which is completely unprecedented. That you've never been able to do that before, but now you'll have 2 token effects at once, although technically it's a dial and a token, but a dial that acts like a token, so you'd have 2, which is super weird because, like, imagine you're an Engineering 5 ship, you're an interdictor, right? And you're like, I'm going to stop you from engineering at 5 by using Draven. Well, now I actually might get more points if I had a token, because I would have 5 rounded up in my token and then 5 rounded up in my dial, which is shrunk down to be like a token, so I could actually have 6 engineering points going up against Draven. So like, very, very weird. And of course squadrons, well, if I can, if I know that if I'm a squadron build and I see Draven coming, well, I'll just make sure all my ships have a token, so when you do pop this, I can still do a dial plus a token, and basically get 2 tokens worth, which is and it still counts as having activated a dial, which is really interesting. So like it's not nearly as effective as we thought Draven was going to be. It really minimizes, and the fact that Draven doesn't, I feel like Draven should probably be like a 12-point commander with how little he's going to probably impact the game after all of these rulings. Because frankly, I don't ever see any reason for anybody to take him ever again. He does almost nothing at this point. Does almost nothing. If his effect were static through, like, maybe if you had 4 or even 5 turns that you could do this or something like that, it would probably be more significant. But with only doing it 2 turns, and you can completely nullify one of them by making sure almost nullify one of them by making sure you have a token. There's so many token generating effects that are out there. It just doesn't seem like it's going to do very much. And I think the other thing that makes this even more minimized is that you still count as having resolved a dial for all cards that are looking for a dial. Krennic, Director Krennic, for example, you've got I've got a Star Destroyer or a Cymoon or something like that with Krennic, or a Super Star Destroyer. I really need to re-roll all those dice, but if I use Krennic, am I only going to be able to roll 2 because Krennic has a separate trigger for a token, a separate trigger for a dial? Well, you get to do the dials trigger even though you resolve it as though you had spent a token. So, like it's pretty bizarre how nerfed this ruling makes him. Like, he seems like he was going to be situational but good, situational but like interesting, you know, and an interesting way to maybe combat Sloane builds. But like, I feel like even Sloane builds will look at this and just laugh, and they're just like, no, I'm not worried about this at all. You know, if this was the turn I needed to launch all of my squadrons, then I'll pop my tokens. And if this wasn't the turn I needed to launch all my squadrons, then, you know, I'll just, you know, treat it like a token, and I'll, you know, wait till the next time, and then you'll be completely defanged. So I don't know. I feel like Draven doesn't do much without. I mean, maybe he would be a little more effective if Asajj Ventress was also for the rebels, and you could, you had, you know, more effective ways of like stripping tokens. Because I think that's like the only way that you might get him to be kind of effective, is if you're able to also strip tokens. And there's, I don't know, then you have to build this whole playlist around him, and at 28 points, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it at all. He's just so crazy to me that he works. And there's a lot of really interesting ones, like Leia against General Draven, right? She's still you basically get 2 tokens every time. So, you know, like it's just, there's all sort of different interactions. Just about every card that has if you spent a token versus if you spent a dial. Maydeen as the rebels, you know, you still get the extra yaw, because Maydeen says, hey, if you spent a dial, you can do this. And Draven's like, yeah, you still spent a dial, even though you resolved it as if you resolved a token. It's, you know, it's how as if, you know, it's not like as if is a very like parenthesed kind of word. Like in this case, as if means something totally different. It's just the value of the dial is shrunk down to a token's value, but it's still a dial for intents and purposes. Which is, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna put a link down in the video description so you guys can check it out. Pretty interesting stuff. And at the end of the day, I feel like this has some pretty large impacts. I had talked earlier about it being like rock, scissors, paper, where Draven was going to counter, you know, Sloane, and Sloane was going to counter Anakin, and Anakin would counter everything else. But now without Draven to counter Sloane, it's really Anakin versus Sloane. So you're either bringing, you know, and of course it doesn't have to be. I just played in a tournament, you know, yesterday, and it was, I thought this was going to be the first tournament after all these rules. I thought it was going to be just all Sloanes and Anakins. And out of like 10 people, I think there was only 1 Sloane and 2 Anakins, and everybody else had like a counter Anakin list, like a different way. I ran something that was like a little bit of, had a little anti-Sloane, a little bit anti-Anakin, but really just the thought that like, hey, everybody's gonna run Anakin, and people didn't. Maybe that's just my community being awesome. I don't know. But I feel like, you know, Anakin and Sloane are both like wildly overpowered and need tremendous nerfs, and Draven's not the answer for it. So, you know, I'd say let's make Anakin and Sloane both 50 points each, and let's go from there. Let's see if that works. And that's a starting thought, at least. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are out of this world and help make this channel possible. So thank you for your continued support. I'll talk to you later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. So say we all, and always wash your socks.